Hey friends, I'm so excited to see you guys again. We're going to be looking at fairy tales today. So, we've talked about lots of different genres of books and stories this year. We've talked about fiction and nonfiction, different types of fiction, different types of nonfiction. One thing we haven't covered yet is fairy tales. I'm so excited because fairy tales are my favorite. So, can anybody guess what the majority of Disney movies are? Yes, you're correct. They're fairy tales. I love fairy tales. They're so fun. There are lots of things that make fairy tales fairy tales. So I want to go over a couple of things with you guys so that you know how to spot a fairy tale. So I made this nifty little chart for you guys that I'm going to show you that we're going to go over. So if you can see here, just says fairy tales on the top, and we're going to go over a couple of things that just make fairy tales fairy tales. So the first thing that we're going to talk about are the characters. What type of characters do you think you would see in a fairy tale? Well, if we think about some different fairy tales that we know of, like Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, they all have something in common, and that is their characters are princesses, princes, kings and queens. A lot of them have talking animals or some kind of magical character. Like in Sleeping Beauty, there's the magical dragon, and lots of different things. In The Little Mermaid, there's Flounder. So there's lots of magical creatures, talking animals, princesses, princes, kings, and queens. So those are the types of characters that we're going to see in a fairy tale. So the next thing that we're going to look at is going to be the setting. Where do the majority of those types of stories take place? The majority of those types of stories take place in, yep, you guessed it, castles and different types of kingdoms. Castles and different types of kingdoms. A lot of times at the beginning of a fairy tale, you will hear something along the lines of once upon a time in a faraway land, or something along those lines. Kind of like the beginning of Shrek. That's what that just reminded me of. So a fairy tale is going to have could have a once upon a time beginning, and it's going to take place with castles and kingdoms and lots of very cool places like that. The next thing that we're going to look at are going to be the story events that take place. If you think about your typical fairy tales that you guys know about, a lot of things happen that are kind of the same. You're going to have things such as, let me put this on here and put it up. You're going to have things such as magical events. So, for instance, if we're thinking about Snow White, Snow White's evil stepmother gives her an apple, and she takes a bite of that apple and it puts her to sleep. So that's a magical event. You've got good guys versus bad guys. You've got good versus evil. So those are going to be a lot of your big story events that take place in a fairy tale. The last thing that we're going to look at are lessons that are learned. Most of the time when you're looking at a fairy tale, there's going to be some kind of lesson, some kind of journey that they're going to have taken you on that's going to teach you something. A lot of those times, those lessons might not be easy to figure out, or they could be. Some of those different types of lessons, could be, sorry, the wind kicked up, could be to never give up, to follow your dreams, or dreams can come true. If you take a minute and listen on a lot of Disney movies, you'll hear a song that will tell you what the lesson is that they're trying to learn. So I love fairy tales. Fairy tales are my favorite. These are just a few things that you can use that will show you that a story is a fairy tale. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message and I'd be more than happy to talk a little bit more. Do me a favor though, watch this YouTube video for me. It kind of goes over just the same thing I said, just in a fun character way. So watch that video for me and shoot me a message if you have any questions. See you guys soon.